In northern Iraq, ISIS is facing another battle for territory. Kurdish forces are fighting to retake villages near Mosul. They say they've already won control of several Kurdish villages, and officials say they want to get closer to taking back Mosul from the militants. Peshmerga forces are leading that offensive, and an international coalition is supporting the operation. Well, let's talk more about the fight against ISIS in Iraq with senior military analyst Colonel Cedric Leighton. Great to have you with us. He's a retired Air Force colonel and a former member of the Joint Chief of Staffs. Firstly, let's look at Mosul, where an offensive is underway as we speak. The Iraqi Prime Minister once said that a victory in the war against ISIS would come with the recapture of Mosul, which is the biggest city under ISIS control. How do you see that offensive there playing out?
Well, Lynda, I think it is probably the seminal battle that is about to shape up between ISIS forces and the Iraqi state. So what that really means is Mosul has a lot of symbolic significance, plus key strategic and commercial methods that need to be looked at there. So what you're seeing is an effort by the Iraqi state to actually take over the city, and the fact that we're seeing things going on around Mosul, things going around Fallujah, and things also happening in Raqqa means that there is a major offensive that is about to get underway right now, and that's really the biggest development in the fight against ISIS that we've seen in a long, long time.
And of course, the United States has people on the ground advising near the Mosul offensive. How significant is their role in this operation?
It is very significant. So the reason it is so important is because it actually brings several elements of military power to bear on the fight against ISIS. The first of those is special operations capabilities. The second is air power. And the third is basically instilling the Iraqi forces with the esprit de corps and the will to fight against the enemy that is ISIS. And the fact that they can make ISIS a common enemy, not only of the United States, but also of the various Iraqi militias, as well as the Iraqi government forces, that is a very important piece, a much more important area than is otherwise actually given credit for in this case.
So looking at Fallujah for now, there are analysts that say some civilians in the city will decide between choosing to support the lesser of two evils, whether they side with ISIS or allow the largely Sunni city to be liberated by Shiite militiamen and the Iraqi army. Do you think there'll be a lot of resistance there?
I think there could be, Lynda, and the reason it's a very difficult piece is because, of course, Fallujah is predominantly a Sunni city, and the natural allegiance of many of the residents would be toward a Sunni force. The problem that ISIS has is that they didn't really treat the residents of Fallujah all that well. The other side, though, the fact that the residents of Fallujah are, under the rule of ISIS, makes it very, very difficult for them to actually come out of that and then also say that they will show support toward a Shiite-dominated militia or to a Shiite-dominated Iraqi government force. So that becomes a critical choice that they have to make. Most of them will probably opt for the government side if they're allowed to choose somewhat freely. But in this particular case, it's a very difficult choice for them. But I think the fact that they are now under Daesh rule and under ISIS rule really means that they have a big, big problem, because they haven't been fed properly. They have no economic means of supporting themselves, and that really creates another form of alliances. It's basically the alliance of the belly, and in this particular case, that becomes a very important factor that may supersede a lot of the religious alliances that they would otherwise have had.
Right. Colonel Cedric Leighton, great to have your analysis on all of that and what is a very complicated issue. Thank you very much.
You bet, Lynda. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.